welcome. Thank you for indulging me in our webinar. This is on our program to the Mighty Mekong. So down the Mekong River, one of Asia's most important rivers that starts high up in the Himalayan mountains between China and Myanmar, and flows out through several countries. It flows past through Myanmar, through Thailand, China, down to Cambodia, and then empties into the Pacific Ocean at near Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. So just a couple of words about Wheel and Anchor and what we are all about. So we are a Canadian travel community. We have members from all across the country, and our mission for those of you, if you've not participated in one of our webinars before and you are not familiar with what our philosophy is at Wheel and Anchor, we are all about bringing travelers together. That's the previous slide that doesn't seem to want to load up on my iPad. There's a certain dynamic, a certain vibe about traveling with us, because we really do believe that when people who are like-minded and have a similar sense of what exploration of the world and learning other cultures is all about, that it creates a different experience than just joining any old group tour. And, there's lots of good group tours out there, but, we are something a little bit special, a little bit different. And our goal, and that brings me to the slide that you see in front of you, is that you really get a sense of being well-traveled. And for us, it goes beyond that layer of just seeing the highlights and the main touristic sites, and rather gets into a deeper layer of understanding local culture and meeting local people and getting connected to the people that you're traveling with, as well as the people that you meet along the way. So that's our philosophy at Wheel and Anchor. And just by way of introduction, my name is Gordon Dreger. I'm the founder of Wheel and Anchor, and I am also the person who designs, who puts together the fundamental components of all of our trips. I won't go into a lot more detail about that, but we have a growing team of amazing people who help us deliver these programs to our community. In particular, Paula, who you saw there at the outset, and Barb, our trip specialists, who are the ones that are on the front line, if you will, of dealing with all of your inquiries, making sure you get your questions answered, and can confidently sign up and join us on one of our amazing trips around the world. So that's us. And the agenda today is to take you on a little bit of a tour down the Mekong River, through Southeast Asia, Cambodia and Vietnam specifically, where we're going to be traveling on this amazing adventure. We're actually doing this trip this coming November. So for those of you who thought of a last-minute trip, I think we have a cabin or two left on this November's trip, but we are in this webinar today talking about November of 2024, when we are going to repeat the trip that we have, with a special offer that I'll tell you a little bit about at the end. So let me delve into the overview of the program. First of all, looking at the map of where we're going, we're going to start off in Siem Reap, which is the city that is basically the gateway to Angkor Wat, one of the famous temples that are in the area around Siem Reap. There's actually hundreds and hundreds of them. Most of them sit in ruins. But of course, Angkor Wat, which was discovered not all that long ago, like within the last century, is when they actually uncovered this incredible temple that was sort of deep in the jungle, and had been forgotten for centuries. When they uncovered Angkor Wat, of course, they went looking around and they found many other temples. And so while Angkor Wat is one of the largest, one of the most impressive and well-known, we're going to get a chance to see a couple of the other temples in the area around Siem Reap, and you'll be really amazed by what there is to see. So we spend our first days up there. We then travel overland down to the Mekong itself and embark on our ship at a port called Kampong Cham, and we spend 7 nights cruising gently all the way down the Mekong River, down out into the Mekong Delta. We'll cross the border between Cambodia and Vietnam, and end our voyage at Mai To, where then we will be transferred up to Ho Chi Minh City for the last night of our adventure. And then we have a subsequent trip through Vietnam, which starts in Ho Chi Minh and then makes its way up to the north, up to Hanoi in the north. And actually, I'll be talking about that trip immediately subsequent to this webinar at starting at noon Eastern time for those that are interested in doing both trips. And we divided it into two webinars because we offer it as two separate trips. And judging by this year, we have obviously almost a full ship going down the Mekong, and we have a whole different group of people. Some are continuing on from the Mekong onto Vietnam, while others are just doing the Vietnam portion. So you have that option, and Vietnam has become very popular of late. So let me talk about the day-by-day itinerary on this trip. So first of all, and I'm now normally going off my notes, which are on my iPad, but now that I'm presenting on my iPad, I have to refer to different notes. So bear with me while I make my way through this. So our first day, as I say, we will arrive in and land in Siem Reap, which for travelers from Canada sounds like it's in the middle of nowhere, but there are actually different ways to get to Siem Reap. Most flights go through Bangkok in Thailand. We'll fly up there. You'll arrive in, and as usual, you'll be picked up by our local drivers that will bring you to the hotel where we'll spend 4 nights in Siem Reap, and you will see it's a very bustling. I mean, you can imagine that the millions of tourists that flock to Angkor Wat every year to Siem Reap to see the temples in this area. So we'll have a relaxing day, a little bit of an icebreaker on the first day before we then on the second day begin our adventures in and around Angkor Wat. And so here you get a picture overlooking the city of Siem Reap itself. And as I say, the area of the temples, the Angkor era temples, are all around Siem Reap. And it's actually quite a lively town. There's some amazing restaurants, markets. It's got really a lot going for it. So that'll be Siem Reap. And then on our second day is when we will start to get going, and we will enjoy touring around the town, enjoying some of the food, and really getting a taste of what sort of Cambodia is all about. The food here, this sort of Khmer style food, is particularly interesting. I personally love Cambodian food. There are flavors that are similar to what you would find in Thailand, but there's also some different flavors that you get that will be part of our experience there. So we will, as I say, really get some different tastes. Our trips, generally, we try to combine eating the local Asian food, because I know not everybody wants to eat that every single day, but we will combine that with enjoying Western food as well. So you'll get sort of a good combination. I've got my laptop up going here, so I get to now at least refer to my notes while we do this webinar. The other thing that we're going to say on our first day is we're going to head out to a new place called Sacha, which is a brand new Cambodian handicraft center. And so I know for some people it's like, ooh, handicraft market, have to go. For other people, it's like, oh my God. But this one is really, really well done, because they've set it up as like an incubation center for local artists that really have a talent, but otherwise wouldn't have an outlet on how to get their products out there. So it's very, very well done. It's a great concept. And what we found is that the feedback we've gotten from those that have been, and I haven't had a chance to go, I haven't been in Siem Reap in some years, but have said that it's a fantastic way to spend the day. So we'll have a good part of the day there. So it'll be not too hectic of a day for our first full day in Cambodia. And then we'll have some time to relax, enjoy the hotel, enjoy the weather in the afternoon. And then the evening, we're going to take in the so-called Phare circus. So it's a circus that also, it tells a little bit about Cambodian history, and so it's a lot of fun. It's one of the most interesting things to do while we're there on a sort of an entertainment basis. And as I say, this way, by the time we get to the big day, Angkor Wat, you'll have had a chance to sort of settle in, relax. You'll have a flavor of Cambodia before we get into the hardcore, if you will, touring. And not that our touring is hardcore, but on the third day of our trip, we are going to wake you up really early in the morning. So, in fact, we're going to be getting up before sunrise at about 5 a.m. Why? Well, Angkor Wat, to witness the sun rising over this temple. And so we're going to drive there. You're going to arrive in complete darkness. You're going to be thinking, what the heck did you do getting me out of bed at this hour of the day? And we're actually going to drive around to the East Gate. So this is actually looking at Angkor Wat from the front. We're going to drive around the side in the middle of the night, in complete darkness with flashlights. And we're going to enter in the East Gate, which is the one that is less frequented by most tourists. Show up at 9:30 or 10 o'clock through the main gate, and it's chaos. We're going to sneak in through the side, and then you're going to get the glow of sunrise coming up over the temple. And let me tell you, it will send shivers down your spine. It is the most incredible experience. There, I can't say we'll be the only ones there, but it will be a lot less busy than the usual sort of tourist mayhem that you get through the part of the day. So by the time morning rolls around and we wander around the incredible complex that is Angkor Wat, obviously other people start to arrive. But by that time, we'll be ready to sort of head off onto the next place. And so we are going in the afternoon to another complex where we're going to have called Srasrang, where we're going to visit a classic, a traditional Khmer wooden house. We're going to have breakfast there, so we're going to do our visit actually before breakfast, then go off on to have breakfast, and then we're going to head off to Ta Prohm, which is a temple that has been totally overgrown, but not totally, but almost completely overgrown by the jungle. And so it's amazing to see how these trees and roots over literally decades and decades and even centuries have overgrown the temple. And it's the most amazing thing. You'll take 1 million photographs. So that's another nice spot. We'll stop for lunch. And then the third temple of the day, Angkor Thom, arguably the second most important temple in the area of Angkor Wat, the great city of Angkor Thom, will be our final visit of the day. So it's going to be a long day. But you're really gonna have the experience of what Angkor Wat is all about on these days there. So the next day we won't have as early a start in the morning, although it will still be an early morning. The reason, and listen, I have a philosophy on our trips. In general, we try to leave at 9:30 in the morning so you can have a relaxing breakfast and so on. But when you come to places like this that have become so popular that there is a significant benefit of going to bed early, getting up early, and going with us early in the morning to visit some of these places. And Bante Sray, from my own recollection of my visit there, is the most impressive because of the ornateness, if you can say that. I'm not even sure that's a word, of the carvings in all of the walls and the doors and everything. It is incredible. And you see this temple, it's not nearly as big as Angkor Wat, but the level of detail, you can go to any wall or any door or any ceiling, and it's so incredibly well designed and crafted. I mean, you think it's even possible. And when you consider that this temple of Bante Sray was consecrated in 967, so 11 1,000 years ago for all intents and purposes. It's an incredible day. This day as well, later on in the afternoon, we're going to go and see one of Cambodia's most famous chefs, and he's going to do a demonstration for us. And in fact, I wrote down his name when I was going through this program. His name is Lu Mang, and we're going to, again, experience a classic, a traditional Khmer type meal as well. So once again, a terrific day. So that'll be our first few days in Cambodia. You'll already be mesmerized by the temples and everything that it has to offer. We then make our way down to on our ship, so we're going to drive. It's about a good 2.5-hour drive from Siem Reap down to the Mekong River, specifically to Kampong Cham, which is where we will embark on our ship. And so, and this is mean, there's so many highlights on this trip, but obviously the Mekong cruise is the part that is the relaxing part, because we're going to join this vessel called the Basak Pandaw, and spend 7 nights aboard as we make our way down the Mekong to the Delta in Vietnam. I have been working with Pandaw for many years. What's interesting about this organization is that these ships were designed by, or they were inspired by, the original colonial ships that were used to traverse the waterways of Myanmar, the Irrawaddy, the Mekong, other rivers in Southeast Asia in the early part of the 20th and latter part of the 19th centuries. And so the ships still have that colonial feel to them, which makes it an amazing experience. All of the rooms, like you can see here, are done in teak. They're very comfortable. They're the rooms all have like windows that you see that typically look out onto the hallway. It's not a hallway, but I can't speak English today. The gangway that accesses all the rooms goes around the outside of the ship. So you have the window, either like you see here, depending on which cabin it is, that looks out onto the gangway and then out to the river. They've got great, very generous sized washrooms on board. It is not the most luxurious ship that's floating down the Mekong, but I've been on a couple of different ships in this part of Asia, and I find these to be the most charming. The staff are absolutely wonderful on board, so hospitable. They really go to an extra length to make sure you have a lovely time. The rooms are, by the way, not just in the twin configuration, either that or they are in a king configuration. So where the beds are stitched together to make for one large bed. So you have both of those possibilities. And on board the ship, and I'm sorry I didn't include more pictures, but you have wonderful lounge areas, dining both inside and out, depending on the weather. It's obviously warm enough, but of course it can rain. And so you've got a lot of space. We have chartered the ship yet again exclusively for us. So we are the only ones on the ship, which is a big plus for this program, because we kind of do our own thing and we have our own fun, and we don't have to worry about any other folks. So we'll embark on our ship and immediately set sail and do a little bit of a sunset cruise to the village of Angkor Wat. We'll get introduced, we'll do our safety briefing, we'll all do all that usual stuff that you do on board a ship, and then we will stay overnight. Typically, the ship is not moving at night. It could start moving very, very early in the morning, but generally navigation on the river is prohibited during the night. So most of the traveling will be done during the daytime. So as I say, our first stop will be at this Angkor Wat village that we'll visit them in the morning. And here, among the things that we're going to do, which is always popular for our members, is there is a local school, specifically the library, that was actually built by the Pandaw Foundation. So Pandaw is an organization that is actually privately owned by again, my English today, I can't, by a very generous gentleman from the UK who puts a lot of money back into local communities in all of the countries in Southeast Asia where they operate. So we're going to visit a school there. There'll be an opportunity for those that wish to, if they want to bring books or any of the things that are useful. And we always give our members a bit of a heads up as to what would be an appropriate thing to bring along that they could use. So we'll visit that in the morning. We're going to stop at Silk Island. So here we get to see the silk making process all the way from the worm all the way through into these incredible fabrics that they create. So that's and keep in mind, you can imagine the experience of this. We're in the rural part of Vietnam, so the infrastructure things are very basic. Again, it feels like going back in time by 100 years, and we'll experience some of the arts and crafts and culture that you still find in these rural parts of Vietnam. We'll also get to have a chance to see Boca Tor, which is what the picture is here. This is the ancient Khmer martial art that we'll see there as well. And so all of our meals will be on the ship during the cruise. So we'll have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We include beer and local alcoholic beverages, with the exception of wine, will be included in our program. Basically unlimited, starting from lunch through dinner in the evening. So that's another nice feature of the trip. And the meals on board are fantastic, and they do a great job of offering local options, which I'm always encouraging folks to try. But of course, there's something that's a little bit more known that you'll always have on the menu as well. And breakfast and lunch are always done by buffet, and dinner is typically served unless we have something going on in our program where they have to do it by buffet style. So it's a great combination, and there's always tons to eat. We continue down the river. And in fact, we're going to leave the ship at Udong. We're going to go out by coach and rejoin the ship at a different location. And here, Udong is the actual former capital of Cambodia. And among other things, you'll see the beautiful temples. You get a sense of the one here. We're going to stop in at the Vipassana Center. I've mentioned Vipassana before. I brought our members that came with me to Thailand the early part of this year, to a Vipassana center there. Vipassana is the art of meditation, multiple days of silent meditation. I've done it myself. It's quite amazing, and it's great to see how those practicing the Buddhist religion practice Vipassana. So as I say, later in the afternoon, we'll join the ship at a different location. So we'll get off at one spot and be taken around to see some of the countryside, and then come back to the ship later on. And we'll have lunch on board, and we'll have a chance to experience some of the local Khmer costumes on the deck. And then in the evening, we'll be again moored, and we'll get a chance to visit a small village where we're going to have some cocktails around a fire and see some of the traditional dancing and so on. Our next day takes us into Phnom Penh, which of course is the capital of Cambodia. And it's kind of a rough and tumble sort of a city. It's not quite as evolved as some of the other major cities in Southeast Asia, but I think that's what gives it a particular appeal to it. In Phnom Penh, we're going to obviously get a city tour to see particularly the aspects of the city that were part of the French colonization of Cambodia back in the early part of the 20th century, back in the 20s. So you get this combination between the classic architecture that you see here that is similar from between Cambodia and Thailand in particular, but at the same time, there's a lot of French influence there. So the other part of this day that is the sobering part of this trip is, of course, our visit to the killing fields and the Genocide Museum. And so those of us who are familiar with our history from the days of the Khmer Rouge, a brutal time in Cambodia's history when literally millions of people were put to death by the Khmer Rouge in the killing fields. I suspect many of our members will have read books about it or seen a movie about it. So visiting this part of Cambodia outside of Phnom Penh is a very sobering but a very important experience. It always gives you that sense of reality of the atrocities of humanity that we unfortunately seem to take upon ourselves from time to time. The next day, our ship continues to gradually sail downstream. We're going to head down towards the border between Cambodia and Vietnam. This is a great shot that gives you a little bit of a sense of the countryside. So we come out of the more hilly terrain upstream into the basically the Mekong Delta. So it is very wide expanses of space. The border formalities are quite simple, but nevertheless, we'll get a chance to get off at Long Tuan, which is the town right at the border, and visit a little temple there, see some fish farms. It's a lovely day out. and a relaxing day because we don't have too much on the agenda, largely because they leave a lot of time for the border formalities, which actually are not that big of a deal as long as all of everyone's papers are in order. Then we usually get moving quite away, quite quickly. We now are in, of course, Vietnam. So our ship sails towards the delta, out towards the Pacific Ocean. In the morning, we have sort of a quiet morning of our 10th day of the trip. It's here that you really understand life on the Mekong, and you'll see all kinds of locals in sampan, some of them doing fishing, some of them, like you see in the picture, collecting flowers for the market. And this is the part of the cruise that I think is just sublime, because you feel as you're on this colonial era style of ship, cruising down, floating down, seeing life happen. We'll get a chance to see how they weave the bamboo baskets that are of course still in use for people to collect their flowers and do all their stuff. We'll do a tuk-tuk ride through a local community. We'll visit some beautiful tropical orchids. It's just a lovely day on the cruise. We then head down, as I say, further. So we our last full day on the Mekong, and we're going to get a presentation about a little bit about the history of Vietnam, specifically about the area of the Mekong Delta. So we're now coming into the meat and potatoes of the Delta, where the Mekong spreads out into a million different fingers, and we're going to get a chance to ride on these sampans, so these small rowboats, through the mangroves, through the bamboo forests, the fruit orchards. Again, this is perhaps going to be the most magical day and a great way to spend our last day. We'll then head back to one of the villages. We'll get to ride again out on either a tuk-tuk or one of the bicycles. I'm losing my terminology today. The bicycles that are driven by one driver, and you sort of sit in the front, so you're driven around. I'm forgetting all the names today. So we'll take a look around and see a coconut candy factory where they use the meat from the coconut trees as well as the sap to make these delicious treats. So a wonderful day, and we'll then disembark in Mai To, which is our last port on the Mekong River, and then we'll make about an hour and a half drive up into Ho Chi Minh City, which is of course the commercial hub of Vietnam, the capital being Hanoi up in the north. And here in Ho Chi Minh, which was formerly known as Saigon and still known as Saigon, we're going to first of all go to the old post office and pick an antique postcard where you can mail it home and tell friends back or family back home about your experiences. It's a great day. We'll see Notre Dame Cathedral. Vietnam, again, much like Cambodia, but even more so, was colonized by the French, and there's a lot of French influence, including in the food. We'll have a terrific lunch today in Ho Chi Minh, and we'll make a couple other stops before we head back to our hotel for the last day. So we will get a full day visit of Ho Chi Minh, and here, and I remember this very well from my first visit to Vietnam, which is over 30 years ago. We'll head out to the Cu Chi tunnels, which is just outside of the city. And these are the tunnels that were built by the Viet Cong during the Vietnam War, and enabled the Vietnamese soldiers to elude the invaders, the American troops that came in through this very complex system. It's actually hundreds of kilometers long. We're going to the one called Ben Duoc, and where they also have this amazing temple, and we'll learn how they were able to be successful in the war by going through all these tunnels. If you're claustrophobic, you may not want to crawl through some of the tunnels yourself, but I rest assured that there's a tunnel for everyone, as they see in Vietnam, and Ho Chi will be no different. And we'll have our last meal for those who are ending the voyage and just joining us for the Cambodia and Vietnam the Mekong River part of our trip. For those continuing on, we will meet those who've flown into Vietnam. So we'll spend the last day together. So we'll have a farewell/welcome dinner in Ho Chi Minh City in an incredible restaurant called Lang. Well, I'm not going to say too much about it other than that it's a really special treat, and it is a great way to sort of end the trip and yeah, and yeah, finish off our experience in Vietnam. The next day we'll head out. And that is a summary. And again, thank you for your indulgence that my technology wasn't working at the beginning, but I think we've sort of pulled it all off. As I mentioned at the outset, this trip is followed by our Wonders of Vietnam trip. So there is an overlap at the end for those who are continuing on to do Vietnam, or you can do Vietnam itself. I'm going to be presenting our Vietnam program in 25 minutes time. So at noon Eastern time, 9 o'clock if you're out on the west coast of Canada. And I'll be talking about that as I say, in about 25 minutes. The program follows immediately. All of our details on this program are on the program itinerary, that if you haven't already seen a copy on our website or on our trip list that comes in the newsletter every week, we will send you a copy with a replay of this webinar. And here's the big thing that I wanted to mention. So I was negotiating a lot with our partners at Panda this year so that we could offer a special promo of no single supplement for until the November 30th, or until our allotment of single cabins runs out. So the price that you see here, main deck $74.90, upper deck $89.90, applies if you are sharing a room or if you are traveling in your own room. And so I will say as well that, not like I know that some river cruise companies like to offer the no single supplement, they only have 2 cabins available for it. We actually have more than half the ship. We've been able to secure this amazing promotional pricing. So if you sign up before the end of November, so you've got October, November, and as long as we have enough cabins left, you can go with no single supplement. So that's a big boon, and we're doing what we can for our solo traveler members. We understand the plight of single supplements, so here's an opportunity to do that. And of course, after that promo ends, we have to go back to our regular single prices, which are shown there on the right-hand side. What does this all include? Well, as with all of our programs, we pick you up at the airport and bring you in and bring you back to the airport at the end in Ho Chi Minh on a private basis, meaning it's not an airport shuttle or anything like that, but it's your own vehicle or shared with other Wheel and Anchor members who might be on the same flight. The accommodation, so this is basically a 2-week program, 6 nights of hotel between Siem Reap and Ho Chi Minh, as well as 7 nights on board the ship. On board ship, 3 meals a day, and as I mentioned, unlimited local drinks, both beer and cocktails, with the exception of wine. And of course, we have great guides sightseeing throughout. And on the land portion, we include either lunches or dinners. I can guarantee you're not going to starve on this trip. Yeah, the only thing that you need to do is have a little pocket money for the occasional snack, for anything that's not included. The exclusions, of course, airfare and air taxes, which our affiliate company can quote you on airfare, so we're happy to facilitate those that need, as well as cancellation insurance. Just to give you an indication about what you're looking at for airfare, airfare at the moment to Asia across the Pacific has inflated a fair bit since the onset of the Ukraine conflict, because of course, North American airlines are not permitted to fly over Russian airspace, and so that has limited the number of routes that are available between North America and Asia. So prices are 50% higher than they have been prior to this conflict. So we're hoping, of course, as we all do, that this will pass by and that the prices will return to normal. But at the moment, this is kind of what our members have been looking at for airfare to get over to Siem Reap and back from Ho Chi Minh on this trip. In addition to the promo that I mentioned before, there is also up till the end of 30th a $200 per person early booking bonus that you can take advantage of. So if you are a solo traveler, you get not only no single supplement, you also get $200 off if you sign up before the end of November. So do keep that in mind. And I think it's a good incentive to join. And now is an opportunity for questions, Paula. I hope that worked out well on your end, even though I was working off my iPad.
It was perfect, Gordon. Not to
Okay,
worry
great.
at all.
Okay, good.
Yeah, flowed smoothly. Yeah, definitely a couple questions. So a lot of members have asked if the cabins are air conditioned.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Yeah, we wouldn't.
Yeah.
There's no way we would do this without air conditioning. It's in November the weather is not is. I'm not a huge fan of air conditioning, and so the weather can be cool enough at night that you don't need it. But yeah, there's air conditioning in all of the bedrooms. There's air conditioning in the interior lounges and the interior dining room, but there's also lots of fresh air spaces outside. So if you're somebody like me that doesn't really like air conditioning, you can still soak in that tropical air.
Perfect. So we have a member that's asked if you are going to be hosting. Now, we have a lot of members online with us that are joining this year's trip and have already booked next year's trip, as well as those considering next year's trip. So do you want to speak to the host for this year?
Yeah, for this year, for this year, there we will have two hosts. So it'll be Amber Riedel, that a lot of our members know. She's currently with our group in Italy as we speak, and as well as Rose Marcellet. So we'll have two hosts for this coming trip this November. Next year, to be honest with you, we have not assigned a host yet. It's a little bit too early, so I'm not sure who's going to be hosting it. Could it be me? Possible, but I wouldn't count on it. I've just sort of pulled in 100 different directions, but I can assure you, you're going to have a fun host. We have only fun hosts.
We've been getting great feedback from all of our hosts across the board, which is fabulous. We have another
Yeah.
member who's asking here about purchasing handmade goods, specifically silk products that are produced in Cambodia.
Yep. No problem. You can
Yeah.
so the only you can buy whatever you like. The only thing that you have to be mindful of, and this applies not just in Cambodia and Vietnam, but anytime you buy anything that is considered antique, or it's typically antiques, or obviously any materials, like, for example, unfortunately, sadly, they do still trade in ivory in some of these countries because it filters in from China. So you have to be mindful of products like that are banned for trade or sale. And as I say, some antiques, and we'll be always around between our hosts and our local guides to sort of point you in the right direction if there's something that you would want to buy. But silks is not a problem. You can absolutely buy them. In fact, they love it because you'll get to see, particularly on Silk Island that we visit, how this is made by hand, and you'll see all the stuff that's there. And personally, I don't buy a lot of stuff, but if I see something that's handmade, that's, when it's the genuine thing.
Definitely. I still have my silk tapestry from Cambodia actually in my that I have out
There you
on
go.
display. A couple other questions here. So for members that are joining this year, there's going to be a pre-trip webinar, and a lot of the questions that you are asking we will be definitely diving into. Gordon
Yes.
mentioned on what supplies can be brought for the school. So I don't know if you want to list that off here now, Gordon, or wait till the
No,
pre-trip webinar to get into that.
Yeah, in terms of the preparations for the trip and what to bring, we'll cover that all in the pre-trip webinar. So, and that's coming up quite soon. I think it's next week, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, hold those questions tight.
Yes.
It's 2 weeks from now.
Okay,
yeah, it's about
perfect.
a month ahead. So hold off on
Okay.
those questions. We will address them in the pre-trip webinar, I promise.
Perfect. Members asking about if they require a visa for Cambodia and Vietnam.
Yes, you require a visa for both. You require a visa for both. They're both e-visas, so they can be applied for online, and we will provide instructions. They'll be right in the additional information document that goes to you with the program itinerary. And we also remind people again in the information that the confirmation information, as well as in the pre-trip information. The visas are inexpensive and they're not difficult to apply for. So we give you all the guidance on how to do that.
Yeah, definitely. I had a member asking about if there's preferred cabins on board the ship. Can you speak to
Not
that?
really. I mean, the cabins are pretty much all the same. The only difference is whether they're upper deck or lower deck. Otherwise, they're all pretty much exactly the same.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I was gonna say the same. And with regards to what amenities or facilities are on board the ship as well?
So this is, I mean, the ship, in total has 38 staterooms, if my memory serves me correct. And so it's not a huge ship, so you're not going to find amenities like you'll find on a cruise ship. There is and I will double check this, but there is a small spa where they do massages and so on that is available on the ship. There's lounges, indoor and outdoor, dining room as well. Indoor and outdoor dining they typically do inside, just because although you generally have the option as well to go and sit outside if you like, and then an observation deck from where you can sort of watch the river go by. We keep you fairly busy on all of the excursions that we have during the trip, so there is obviously downtime, but the amenities don't really go beyond that. That's basically it.
Yeah, and there is a small gym with some equipment there as well for those that like that as well. So I think worth noting, because that's been well used in past trips.
There you go. Thank you.
Members asking whether laundry can be done on board. If there's
No,
laundry
I don't.
service.
Actually, you know what, Paula? That's a good question.
I can look into that as well. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head, and I'll get back to you, Claudette. Wi-Fi, there is Wi-Fi on board.
Definitely Wi-Fi on board.
I don't know what you think, Gordon, in terms of reliability of Wi-Fi on ships like this in remote regions, but
it's not bad. There's Wi-Fi on board. We are looking at providing members SIM cards next year. That's just something that we're working on, so I can't confirm that as yet. But generally the Wi-Fi, certainly when you're moored, so in the evenings and in the mornings, because you're moored close to a town. I mean, let's put it this way: if you have like urgent business or something that you need to do, then that is something that I wouldn't count on it if it's like of life importance. But there is generally Wi-Fi available, and there is generally pretty good mobile service pretty much throughout the trip. When you're sailing through very remote rural areas, it could be that there's no signal, but my experience has been you get it 90% of the time. And I double checked, there is a laundry available on board the ship, so you can at a relatively modest fee, so you can do laundry on the ship.
Perfect. And for those that are on board and are asking about the pre-trip webinar, so I maybe spoke too soon, it's just, I think, been set on our end. You will get email notification of it, but for those needing to plan around a work schedule, it's October 17th at noon. You'll be sent the link, and for those that can't attend, there will be a recording.
Absolutely, yeah. So the pre-trip webinar, I just checked it as well. So the 17th of October, and we'll cover all of the things that you need to know for the trip then.
Yeah, perfect. Any other questions, you can reach out to Barb or myself. We also have an additional information document which will cover things you probably hadn't even thought of yet. Is quite thorough. And,
okay, perfect.
Yeah, I don't have any other questions that have come in for me at the moment, Gordon.
Okay, fantastic. Well, if you do have questions, as Paula mentioned, please do just drop us a note. Happy to answer them. Thank you for indulging me with some technical difficulties at the beginning, but we got through it all. For those that are interested in the Vietnam trip, which immediately follows the Mekong trip, We're going to be starting that webinar in 10 minutes time. It looks like my laptop has come back to life, so that's good news. And we'll talk about that soon. Thank you for your time, for your attention today. I appreciate it. Please do consider joining us next year, and have a great time if you're coming with us this year. We'll see you, all of those folks who are coming with us this year, on the pre-trip webinar on the 17th of October. Take care, and we'll see you all again very, very soon.